शन्नो मित्रशं वरुणः शन्नो भवत्वर्यमा शन्न इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्मविद्यासम्प्रदायकर्तृभ्यो वंशर्षिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः सर्वोपप्लवरहितः प्रज्ञानघनः प्रत्यगर्थो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि ॐ नारायणं पद्मभवं वसिष्ठं शक्तिं च तत्पुत्रपराशरं च व्यासं शुकं गौडपदं महान्तं गोविन्दयोगीन्द्रमथास्य शिष्यं श्रीशङ्कराचार्यमथास्य पद्मपादं च हस्तामलकं च तन्तोटकं वार्तिककारमन्यान् अस्मद्गुरून् सन्ततमानतोऽस्मि श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। Greetings to everybody. Welcome to the e-retreat on the MandukyaUpanishad. The plan was to meet in Arshavidya Gurukulam Anekatti to conduct these classes. When the planning was made a year ago, we were hoping to do it in person, with many of you being present there in Anekatti. But well, that is not to be. So the next best is that we are talking to you from a long distance. And hopefully you'll be able to take advantage of these classes as you would had you been in Arshavidya Gurukulam Anekatti. The subject matter chosen for this week-long retreat is MandukyaUpanishad. Upanishad word means self-knowledge, And that is in a way revealed by the very word. The word Upanishad is made up of the three elements, Upa and Ni, which are prefixes, and Sad is a word derived from the root Sad, Upanishad, where the prefix Upa, which means Samipyam, proximity, indicates subject matter of Upanishad, which is what is proximate, most proximate, namely the self. So Upanishad means knowledge of the self. What kind of knowledge is revealed by the prefix Ni? Nishchitam Jnanam. Ascertained knowledge. Knowledge that is free from any doubts, vagueness, errors. Because self-knowledge is said to have three obstacles. One is avaram, ignorance. Some share the doubts. Viparya, the habitual error. So Nishchitam Jnanam, the knowledge that is free from all these obstacles, ignorance, doubts and errors. What does this knowledge do to us? It is revealed by the word Sat, derived from the root Sat, to which the quip pratyaya is applied, which converts the verb into, verbal root into a noun. So Upanishad is actually a verbal root to which, when the quip pratyaya is applied, suffix, it becomes the noun Upanishad. And Sat is a root which has three meanings: Gati, Visharanam, Avasadanam. Gati means a journey. This Upanishad, Gamayati, it takes us somewhere. The knowledge of the self takes us somewhere. Where does it take it? Where we are constantly striving to reach, seeking to reach, and that is freedom. We are inherently seeking freedom. Freedom from every form of limitation. We love to be free. And whenever we have this feeling that I am bound, I am limited, I am constrained, I am controlled, I am helpless, whenever I feel like this, there is from me an impulse to become free from the sense of limitation. Thus, every moment the human being is seeking to be free. The freedom that is unconditional freedom. Freedom not limited to a time, not limited to a place, not limited to any conditions. The unconditional freedom is what every human being is seeking. That is what is most dear to us. And therefore, what is most dear to us, they say, is our own self. Parapremaswadam yataha, because Atma, the self, is parapremaswadam, the object of unconditional love. The fact that we unconditionally love freedom, which means freedom must be our nature, and freedom and happiness always go together, because we feel happy when we feel free. So call it freedom, call it happiness, call it love. That is our true nature. And therefore, love is constantly expressed through us every minute. Love for the self. And even when we may appear to be non-loving people, hateful people, sometimes, that hatred also is towards something which seems to obstruct my experience of love of myself. Self is always the object of love. Freedom is always the object of love. Happiness is always the object of love. Therefore, Upanishad is knowledge that reveals the reality about me, and that is freedom, unconditional freedom, unconditional happiness. And just as I love freedom and happiness, I should say that I also hate bondage or unhappiness. So not only do I seek happiness, I seek a total freedom from unhappiness. Atyantika dukkha nivritti, cessation of all pain or sorrow once and for all. Niridesha sukha vapti, attainment of unsurpassable happiness. That is called moksha, and that is our nature, thank God. The most amazing thing that the Upanishad reveals is that you are what you are seeking to be, tattvamasi, that thou art. That is the uniqueness of Upanishad, which very clearly reveals this and very clearly also gives us a way of how to gain that knowledge, how to be what we truly are. Not only Upanishad reveals that, but then gives very clear means of also accomplishing that. So Upanishad means self-knowledge without doubt or error, which takes me to my true nature, which is happiness, freedom, liberation, moksha. And you may say, where is the question of taking me to moksha? Where is the question of taking me to happiness? If happiness is already my nature, as I just said, if freedom or liberation is already my nature, where is the question of bringing me to freedom or happiness? So this is where the basic problem is that a human being is that even though happiness or freedom or moksha, liberation is my nature, meaning that as I am free, I am liberated, I am happy, that is the obtaining fact about me. Even now, as I am, without any change in myself, I am free, I am happy. The only problem is, for some reason or the other, my perception about myself is that I am bound, I am limited, I am unhappy, I am sad, I am sorrowful. That is unfortunately the perception I have about myself. Thus, there is a big contradiction in my life between what I truly am and what I feel about myself. What I am and the perception I have about myself are totally contradictory. And therefore, right now, my life is lived on the basis of my perception that I am a limited being, a bound, helpless, hapless creature who must struggle somehow to become free from this bondage. Thus presently, my life is lived, giving reality to the sense of limitation, sense of bondage, sense of helplessness that I feel about myself. Unfortunately, I am seeking to achieve freedom or happiness, which is not only my own nature, and also that the freedom or happiness is not to be found anywhere else. There is nothing in the universe other than myself that is of the nature of happiness or freedom. So, therefore, presently, all my endeavors, all my struggles, all my efforts to achieve freedom, to achieve happiness are unsuccessful. There is rarely a successful person in this world. Although the world equates success with wealth or power or fame or some other accomplishment, that's what the world equates with happiness, success. But it is not the world that has to decide whether I am successful or not. Even if the world declares that I am a successful person, unless I feel I am successful, that success doesn't give me happiness. There are wealth or name, fame, power or other accomplishments appear to give me some momentary happiness, a sense of success. But soon enough they reveal their true nature that no, they are not success. I find myself again inadequate, unhappy with myself, and I am striving to achieve something else. Therefore, the life of a human being, which is based on this perception that I am a limited being, I am bound, I am unhappy, I am helpless, how to become free, how to become happy, how to become empowered. This becoming can never lead us to what we are seeking. Ours is a life of becoming, from bound to free, from unhappiness to happy, from unsuccessful to successful. And that is where the Upanishad comes in. It brings us to what it is that we are seeking, the true or lasting sense of happiness. Not a fleeting sense of happiness, not a fleeting sense of success. Well, we do experience a temporary sense of success or happiness. What we are seeking is the lasting sense of happiness, lasting sense of freedom. That is what we are seeking, that's the goal of life, and that's what Upanishad brings us to, by revealing that you already are what you are seeking to be. Then what's the reason why I seem to feel quite contrary to what my true nature is? Why is it so? Swamiji, freedom is my nature, why do I feel bound? If happiness is my nature, why do I feel unhappy? There is no explanation of why. So Vedanta says it is ignorance. Ignorance of my true nature. First of all, veils my true nature, meaning that I do not know that happiness I am, success I am. And the worst part of that ignorance is that not only do I know that I am a happy, fulfilled, complete being, on the contrary, I take myself to be incomplete, unhappy, bound. Meaning that my feeling about myself, my perception about myself is quite contrary to what I truly am. The reason explained is ignorance. Ignorance has two aspects, avaram and vikshepa. Avaram, not knowing the true nature of myself. Vikshepa, taking myself to be contrary to what I am. The Vedantins give the example of rope snake, where a piece of rope is lying in front of me. Because of inadequate light, I mistake that to be a snake. What is rope is perceived by me as a snake. Why is it? Because I do not know that object to be rope, ignorance. And that ignorance leads me to take that object as snake, which is called projection. So this rope snake example explains what is happening in our life. That not only do I not know that I am a complete being, happy, free, what it is I am seeking to be, but I take myself to be contrary to what I am, unhappy, sad, bound, helpless. And therefore the only solution that we have in our life of our sense of limitation, of the sense of happiness, unhappiness, is to discover that my perception about myself is totally wrong, to gain the right perception about myself, right knowledge about myself. Therefore, for this peculiar, unique problem that human being has, who wants happiness? Who wants success? Who wants freedom? Who wants love? The solution is to discover that happiness, freedom, love is already your nature. To discover that fact. That's what Upanishad reveals. Reveals the true nature of the self. That's what brings me to myself. Brings me to freedom, happiness that I am. It's a process. It does not happen in a moment. Although very often the romantic descriptions of how enlightenment took place in a moment, maybe so. But as best as I understand, it is a process of self-growth, self-unfoldment, self-discovery. That when I adopt the right process in my life, right sadhana, right means in my life, I progressively discover that freedom or happiness to be my nature. As I discover, the sense of bondage, the sense of unhappiness, sense of helplessness becomes loosened. It's called Vichara, loosening of the bondage. Bondage is nothing but my false notion about myself. But as I keep discovering my true nature, those false notions are dropping off. It is as a loosening of the bondage, which culminates into avasadhanam, destruction of bondage. So gati, visharanam, avasadhanam. These are the three meanings of the root sad. And so Upanishad is the knowledge of upa, which is in proximity of the self. It is nishchitam jnanam, free from ignorance, avaranam, doubt, error. And it is a knowledge which is to be gained from the teacher. But I would never suspect that what conclusions I have about myself are wrong. I never suspect that my perception of myself is wrong, contrary to what my true nature is. As I said earlier, that our life presently is based on giving reality to what my perception is about myself. I'm a limited being. How to become free from limitation, how to become successful, to become happy. And I will never suspect that this conclusion about myself is wrong conclusion. Even though I am not successful in achieving the goal of happiness or freedom, I never think that maybe my assumption about myself is wrong. I continue to think that maybe happiness is elsewhere. If not here, elsewhere. Success not here, elsewhere. Not in this birth, next birth. Not as a human being, as some other being. The search has been going on from the time beginningless. We need somebody to point out to us. Like in the story of the 10th man, the person counts others and does not take himself into account. So he concludes that there are 9 people standing in front of me, that we are 9. That 10th man is lost. I am not the 10th man. And thus the process of searching for the 10th man. Now they keep on searching, not successfully. But every time I fail to spot the 10th man, there is a hope that he may be elsewhere. And therefore, even though my search is not successful, still my conclusion that I am not the 10th man does not change. Nothing that can happen will change that conclusion. And therefore, someone else is required, a wise person is required to point out to me, Swamiji, you are the 10th man. You are what you are seeking to be. You have a wrong perception, a wrong conclusion about yourself. And that is why someone else is required, a wise person is required. You call him the teacher, the guru. Therefore, guru is required to make me see that my conclusions about myself are wrong, and also to make me see what is the reason why I conclude about myself the way I do. It's not enough to say that your conclusions are wrong. That elderly gentleman who came to these boys who were searching for the 10th man, he asked his leader, how did you conclude the 10th man is lost? I counted. How did you count? I'll demonstrate. So he demonstrates. When he counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and then says, where is the 10th man? So that is the right context is created, right frame of mind is created for this one to discover the fact. You are the 10th man. Had he been just told you the 10th man, you would not understand what it means. Having counted the 9, then we are told, hey, you are the 10th man. Then a tube light happens and yes, you are right, I am not counting myself. The notion that 10th, I am not the 10th man, that notion is removed by this Upadesha, you are the 10th man. 10th man is not produced. This 10th man is not seen that, yeah, I now see, I have realization of 10th man. I see him in some place in my forehead or some place. No such thing. It is not realization of 10th man. It is the removal of the notion that I am not the 10th man. We don't have to realize ourselves because we already are. What is needed is the dispelling of the ignorance of the nature of this false perception, false conclusion about myself. So even Upanishad also does not reveal myself. The job of Upanishad is to remove the avaran, the false notion about myself. The Brahma nivrutti. This is called Brahma. False perception, false notion, wrong notion, wrong conclusion, whatever you want to call it, delusion, whatever you want to call it, Brahma. Aviveka, seeing what is not there and not seeing what is there. The ropes take example, what is Brahma? Not seeing the rope that is there and seeing the snake which is not there. So not seeing the fullness that I am and seeing the limitedness that I am not. This not seeing myself as a limited being is my main problem. That's called Brahma, delusion about myself. And what the Upanishad, the teaching does is Brahma nivrutti, removal of this Brahma or the false notion, the false perception about myself. So in that way, Upanishad does not reveal the self. Why is it so? Because, thank God, self is always revealed. The self or I is self-revealing. Swaprakasha, which reveals itself and reveals everything else. Atma, the self, is swaprakasham, self-revealing. Everything else called anatma is achetanam, is jadam. It does not reveal itself nor reveals anything else. Two categories of entities are there. Swaprakasham, paraprakashyam, called chetanam or chaitanyam or consciousness, is self-shining, self-revealing and revealing everything else. Always shines, always reveals, even now also. Even when the 10th man thinks that the 10th man is lost, the 10th man is shining his own self. Even when I think that I am a helpless creature, bound, limited, I happen to be free. The self even now reveals itself to be boundless, limitless. It is for me to see it. I don't want to make the self limitless. Atma is Brahman. The Upanishad says, I am Atma Brahman. This Atma is Brahman, is a fact. Atma or the self does not have to become Brahman, understand? It is saving grace. You don't have to become Brahman. Otherwise there can be any number of obstacles in becoming process. Here there is no obstacle because it is my own self already accomplished. Therefore, knowledge is a solution here. Knowledge of myself that removes these false notions about myself. As the notions are removed in unfoldment by the teacher, I continue to become free. That's why the bondage is loosened and ultimately eliminated. So that's what Upanishad means, self-knowledge, which is of this nature. And Upanishad is part of Vedas. Veda has two sections. Karma Kanda, dealing with the karma, the rituals, duties, values, attitudes, dharma, righteousness, which instructs us into the right way of living by vidhi and nisheda, do's and don'ts. Do this because it is beneficial to you. Refrain from doing that because doing that is hurtful to you. Because a human being is given a freedom of choice, and that every moment we are required to make a choice. Not only free will is given, freedom of choice is given, but we are required to make a choice every moment. And when we make a choice, we make choice based on our understanding, which is likely to be wrong or incomplete. We are blessed with knowledge, the power to know, Jnana Shakti, Ichha Shakti, power to will, Kriya Shakti, power to act, but all these powers are limited. Never our knowledge is, we have knowledge, but very limited knowledge. Not always adequate to make right choices. What is the right choice in a given situation? What is meant by right choice is the choice that is beneficial to me. And because what I am is what everybody else, I am the self of all. Therefore, that will be the beneficial choice that is beneficial to everything else also. Therefore, right choice is that which is beneficial to all. And it is difficult for me to understand that. That's why I need the guidance. That's what the first section, the Karma Kanda section, does. Instructs me about what is right and what is wrong, so that I can choose what is right, avoid what is wrong, help myself, avoid hurting myself, help myself, and in that process, help others also. So that's the way of life that the Vedas teach us. Life of activity, life of karma, life of engagement. So Vedas thus teach us this two-fold lifestyle. First is the life of karma. Activity, engagement, duty, dharma, doing what is right. Why do we need to be told that, Because we are so preoccupied often with our self-interest, so preoccupied with what I want, that in the process of accomplishing that, it's quite likely that I may compromise the values, compromise dharma. I may wind up hurting the interest of others. I may trample upon the rights of others. Whenever I am compelled by my greed, by anger, by lust, by jealousy. Unfortunately, these negative, self-damaging tendencies are there in me. If I allow myself to be impaired by them, then in all probability I will do something which violates the values, violates the order of dharma. And therefore I need to be told. Because by myself I am likely to make a wrong choice. Whenever that choice is dictated by my selfishness, by anger, by greed, by lust, by jealousy. And therefore living life of dharma, a commitment to do what is right, requires me to keep under check these damaging impulses of lust, anger, greed, jealousy. So life of dharma is what the Vedas teach. That you do achieve artha kama. Artha means wealth, prosperity, power, name, fame. That's what you want. You're welcome to achieve that. Kama is a pleasure that you want from life. Welcome to have that. As long as the accomplishment of artha and kama is based on righteousness, dharma. So dharma becomes very important for human being. Because we are likely to make wrong choices, seek immediate gratification, seek immediate benefit, short-term gain, long-term pain. Because I want immediate gratification, very often I make the choice of short-term gain and invite long-term pain. Dharma is short-term pain, long-term gain. And that's why I need to be guided in my life. So Vedas are like the GPS, the global positioning system that guide you at every step. And that's how living life of dharma. Since I am required to subdue my impulses in course of time, my mind becomes free from the pressure of these impulses. And these impulses represent bondage, helplessness. I become helpless when I am angry. When kama, krodha, the lust, anger, greed, jealousy, any of these impulses takes over me, I become helpless. And helplessly make wrong choices. So, with the help of the life of dharma, righteousness, based on what is right. So Pujya Swamiji say, there are choices, what is right and what I like in a given situation. Left to myself, I am likely to choose what I like and likely compromise what is right. Not realizing that in that process I am hurting myself. So doing what is right, even if it is painful, do what is right. It's called dharma. But the short-term pain which I have suffered brings about long-term gain, progressively makes me free from those impulses, from helplessness, from bondage. So first level of freedom is the freedom from these inner impulses. That's freedom, that's moksha. So not that moksha will come someday. If I live a life wisely, means making right choices and putting up with pain or discomfort for making the right choice. Then, in course of time, I discover inner freedom. Freedom from the impulses. That's a great accomplishment. Our Puja Swami used to say that when you have that, you have reached about 80-90% of the destination. Therefore, the first section called Karma Kanda or Dharma Kanda, which teaches dharma, a person becomes emotionally mature. Who is emotionally immature? One who is controlled by his lust, anger, greed, etc. As I become free from those impulses, I come closer to my true nature. That process in Vedanta is called Antahakana Shuddhi also, purification of mind, emotional maturity, discovering inner freedom. Freedom from my own inner enemies of Kama, Krodha, Lobha. It's not an ordinary accomplishment, it's a great accomplishment. When that goal of the first level of freedom is achieved, then I'm ready now for the second level of freedom, which is the freedom through knowledge. Now I have a composure of the mind to listen to the teacher and assimilate what the teacher is communicating. Because it is not just Shravanam, does not mean just listening to the teacher. The means of knowledge is Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Atmavara drashtavya, shrotavya, mantavya, nididhyasitavya, Maitreyi. Sri Yajnavalkya says to Maitreyi, Maitreyi, Atma vayara drashtavya. The Atma must be seen, must be known. Because not knowing Atma, not knowing yourself as you are misguided all the time, seeking happiness where it is not. Therefore you must recognize, see this fact. Happiness or freedom that you are seeking is yourself. Atma vayare drashtavya. Sir, how do I know the Atma? Shrotavya. Approach a teacher. So we have to approach a teacher. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshante jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinah. The jnaninah tattvadarshinah, learned and wise sages, will impart knowledge to you. When they see in you a sincere aspirant whose only commitment is the knowledge of the self. So this process of self-purification, how do I know my mind is pure or being purified? We discover that as impulses, the force or the pressure of impulses reduced, the rajas and tamas in my mind is reduced, the sattva, the clarity, the purity becomes manifest. And slowly I discover my love changes, the passion changes. When there is predominance of tamas, then there is a passion for distraction, hurting others. When there is predominance of rajas, there is a passion for gratification, greed, accomplishment, gratification. On the other hand, as the mind becomes sattvic, the passion changes. Slowly discover passion for knowledge or passion for devotion. We discover Shraddha, Bhakti from ourselves. The Shraddha, Bhakti, all of that is in plenty of measure in ourselves. They become manifest. I discover myself as now a seeker of knowledge. Vividisha, the desire for knowledge arises in me. When that happens, then I become fit for pursuit of knowledge. So desire for knowledge is a primary requirement for pursuit of knowledge. Desire for anything is primary requirement for that pursuit anyway. And the desire for knowledge arises in a mind that enjoys clarity, enjoys purity, enjoys freedom from these inner pressures of kama, krodha, etc. So this is what the first section of Veda, the dharma shastra, does. Then tad vijnanartham sagurameva vigached. When there arises a desire, keen desire for knowledge, then gurumeva vigached, then one must necessarily approach the teacher, the wise and learned teacher. Shrotriyam brahmanishtam. Shrotriyam, well versed in scriptures. Brahmanishtam, abiding in the knowledge of Brahman. Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Lord Krishna says, we approach these wise people, pranipate, with a long prostration, dirgha namaskara, which is a sign of surrender, sign of shraddha, trust, that I trust you. And therefore now I hand over myself under your care. Mahapurusha samshraya, taking refuge under the tutelage of a Mahapurusha, of a wise person. That's what that prostration indicates. Sevaya, serve the teacher, win his love and confidence. Pariprashna, then ask the question. And thus the scriptures seem to insist that one should go to the teacher, subject oneself to the teaching or unfoldment of the scriptures from the lips of the teacher. When the student is listening, he is not just listening. What the teacher does is unfolds the meaning of the statements of the scripture, the Upanishads. Athato Brahma Jignasa. Brahma is subject matter of the Upanishad, or Atma is subject matter of Upanishad. So Atma vare shrotavya. Sage Yajnavalkya told Maitreyi, hey Maitreyi, you should listen to Atma. How do you listen to Atma? Listen to unfoldment of the Atma. How do you listen to unfoldment? When you listen to the unfoldment of the statements of Upanishads, because the subject of Upanishad is Atma, is Brahma. Therefore, listening to the unfoldment of the statements of Upanishads is listening to the unfoldment of the true nature of myself. This is called Vichara. Deliberation upon the nature of the self. Anything can be known by Vichara. When a scientist also investigating, so he's seeking to understand something, he investigates. He deliberates upon that. He focuses the attention and deliberates upon that. Some phenomenon has taken place. An apple has fallen. You deliberate upon that. Meaning, seek to understand the reasons why this has happened. Understand that phenomenon. That understanding is called knowledge. So phenomenon is there, experience is there, and the Vichara is the process of thinking that leads to the understanding of that experience. So Atma is always experienced. I always experience myself. I know that I am. And without the experience of the Atma, the self or the I, no other experience can take place. And therefore, in every experience that I have, the experience of self is always involved. That's the first thing that reveals itself, manifests itself. So then what do the Upanishads do? They take these experiences that we have of ourselves and unfold the nature. These experiences become the basis of unfolding the true nature of the self. Because self reveals itself through every experience. I also am understanding my experience, but wrongly understanding. Therefore, how to rightly understand my experience of myself? And that also includes the experience of the world and experience of God, Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara. How to understand them rightly? I have right now my own understanding who I am, what the world is, what God is. But the right understanding is what the Upanishads provide. How do they provide that? In the form of teaching. So an Upanishad is usually a dialogue between the teacher and the student. Sometimes you know who the teacher is. Sometimes you know who the student is, or both of them are. Sometimes you know one, other one, or we may not know either of them. But certainly, as the Upanishad says, that this knowledge has to be sought from a teacher. Therefore, every Upanishad is a teaching on the part of the teacher to a qualified student. So our teacher also unfolds that teaching which is Upanishad in the form of various statements. Mainly primary statement is called Mahavakya, which reveals the identity of what I think is Jiva, a limited being, with Brahman that is limitless. That's the primary teaching of the Upanishads. That's called Mahavakya, the major statement. In fact, Upanishad may have one or two, the one Mahavakya, whole Upanishad is an unfoldment of that Vakya. For example, MandukyaUpanishad says, I am Atma Brahma. This self is Brahman. The one who takes himself as Jiva Atma is Brahman, the limitless. And the rest of the Upanishad unfoldment of this statement. So Upanishad only reduces to one statement called Mahavakya, which reveals the reality of the self and therefore of everything. So Upanishad itself is an unfoldment of that Mahavakya. Therefore the teacher unfolds, explains the statements, tells us Tatparya, the purport of the statements. A statement or a sentence can be understood correctly when someone communicates something to us, and that communication, if it is in form of words, then when does a successful communication take place? When the listener has understood the intended meaning. The words may convey a meaning, but important is not just what words convey literally. Mostly that is all right also. But sometimes understanding literal meaning may not be enough. It's important to understand the intended meaning. What's the intention in the mind of the speaker when a given sentence is used, when given words are used? Therefore, in verbal communication, that communication becomes successful only when the listener understands the intended meaning. Understand? It is likely that the literal meaning is the intended meaning, but sometimes that may not be so. Therefore, it is important that we should understand the intended meaning called tatparya, the purport of a statement. Statement is, you are Brahman, I am Atma Brahma, this self is Brahman. What is meant by that? It's called tatparya. What is the meaning intended by the statement? Because when I hear the statement, I may not get the right meaning. So the teacher unfolds the intention, the tatparya. Therefore, understanding the tatparya, the meaning intended by the Upanishads as unfolded by the teacher, that process is called Shravanam. It's called Vichara. What is Vichara? Vichara is the understanding or unfoldment of the meaning intended by the Upanishad. Tatparya Nischaya. That is the most important process in the pursuit of knowledge. Then comes Mananam, where some doubts may be there which may be resolved. And of course, an important process in Nididhyasanam, becoming free from the habitual error. But the primary is Shravanam, which is a means of knowledge. So thus, Upanishad is a body of teaching which is the second stage after Karma Kanda is the Jnana Kanda. Kanda or section dealing with knowledge, also called Upanishad self-knowledge, also called Vedanta because these texts are often located at the end of the Veda or Vedanta. Anta also means the vision. The vision of the Veda is ultimately found in these Upanishads. Therefore also it's called Vedanta. So Mandukya Upanishad. Mandukya Upanishad also is an Upanishad of that nature, which unfolds the nature of the self, by true knowing which we become free from all our notions or Brahma and we gain the freedom. This is with this background now. I will continue in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Vadarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.